Good morning, self lovers. Welcome back to the Self Love Show. I am your co host, Dawn Light, with my beautiful sister here, Trish Wright. And we are so stoked to be here with you today. It's an exciting day, as always, every day is, right? In case you are new to us, we just want to say thank you for seeing our show and dive right in. We have so much beautiful content on all the other platforms. We're on everywhere you want to look for us. So, same title, The Self Love Show, YouTube, podcast platforms everywhere. We're just so excited for you to go and explore all the golden gems of the past 4 years. And it's such a pleasure and a joy to um, stand in the mission of growing self love. And so that's why we do this, because self love comes in all shapes and sizes. And we want to get the message of self love out in the right way for you, the one that fits you and your curriculum, what's gone on in your life, better your relationships, and better your own relationship with God within. So, today's guest is an amazing guest. We're so grateful you're here with us, Paul. And I'm going to read his bio for a moment. So, how to become a love language linguist. The author of Love is God. In his wisdom, he placed us in a variety of circumstances that require us to find our way back to his pure love. So, what requires or qualifies Paul Zolman to speak about love? His childhood experience of the opposite of love. From the austere beginning and the distaste it formed inside him, he searched for and eventually created a method that transformed his life from anger to loving everyone. Growing up in a family of abuse, physical touch became his preferred love style only because of the regularity. He could almost count on it. It was consistent. He came to think that was the way to express love, but deep inside, he knew that was a twisted belief. He wanted a better life for himself, which is why he created a paradigm shift that works. In this book, you'll find what helped Paul Zolman move from a childhood boot camp of abuse to being a person who loves everyone and can find good about anyone in any circumstance. This is truly the role of love. So we'll post Paul's links in the chat a little bit in the show, and just welcome, Paul. We're really grateful to have you.
Thank you, Don. So good to be with you and Trish, and enjoy this discussion we're going to have about self-love.
Yeah. I'm really excited about using the languages of love towards self, right? So when we think about love or when we think about having a relationship, there's this sort of automatic thing that we do, or we put it outside of ourselves. And like when I love Dawn, or I'm in relationship to another person, and I think about loving, and we sometimes forget that the relationship with ourselves is also incredibly important and one of the foundational relationships that we can have. And so I think that sometimes we forget that we can use the principles of love here. Mm-hmm. So I'm curious about how you feel about that.
Great question, Trish, and thank you so much for that. I think that the love languages are counterintuitive in that way. You might think that you need to indulge yourself, and I'm not saying that indulgence is not good from time to time, but that type of indulgence, some people are confusing that with self-love. I think that as you actually send love out, it's really one of the only things that you have control over. I can't bid you, Trish or Dawn, to love me. I can't bid anyone to love me. And if I said, "Would you please love me in this way?" it almost becomes duty bound in that way. So the way we get self-love is actually by sending it out. So that's the only thing we have control over, and then responding when it comes our way. So what this looks like with the love languages is I created a way that happens, and it's just a little cube that I created that has the love languages on. There you see a touch on there, and it's just all the different sides. I'll go over that in a little while, but it just helps sets a theme for the day, almost a purpose for the day. And what I'm doing is I'm practicing that love language all day that day. And while I'm doing that, I'm watching for people that light up. When they light up, I've made their day. There's a great satisfaction for myself when you make another person's day. And I think that by doing that, by sending the love out and then watching people react to the love that you're sending out, when you receive, when someone reacts positively to that, that's when you feel that self-love. You feel the great satisfaction. And maybe a good definition, maybe you can help me understand your definition, Trish and Dawn, of what you believe self-love is, because I want to be on the same page with you in that way. And I think let's develop a conversation about that.
So my definition of love has evolved throughout my life, and there's the definition of like the foundation of love for me, and then there's actions of love. And so for me, love is the radical acceptance of what is. And for me, that means what can I be in the present moment and be in acceptance of what is happening. And then there's to be in the acceptance of loving Dawn is to see her as a full, whole human being doing all of her amazing things, and to manage my own proximity to whatever we might have going on, or to be engaging more, or to, you know what I mean? So things like that. And so self-love is, can I see myself as a full, whole, loving, whole being? And can I accept myself for all of the things that I both enjoy and dislike about myself? How about you, Dawn?
This question is delicious, by the way. I will answer it this way. So I really firmly believe in my consciousness that we are residing in the heart of God at all times. There is no other. And so it's love's consciousness. We're experiencing it through us at all times. And so every reflection in the mirror of life is a reflection of ourself. And that's our curriculum and our learning. And so we draw and attract and magnetize the people, circumstances, places, situations that will best support our spiritual curriculum that we took embodiment to learn and grow through. And so I too, like you, Paul, am a child abuse survivor. And so I had a really tough childhood curriculum. And it really kept me in a very dualistic thinking for a long time in my life. And I was really terrified of the shadow, the dark, but I really wanted to reside in the light. And like, you know, coming from a very, very literalist Christian mother, like, God bless my mom, I love her so much. But it was very much like channel the light and be in the light. And that was my safety place for a long time. But I pushed the dark away, and I was very much in that dualistic thinking. But now I feel like I reside in the heart. And it's like I've worked so much in my consciousness to clean and clear those lens of perceptions. And it shattered that way of thinking that I don't see through right or wrong, black or white, dualistic nature any longer. And it's really learning to live and embody inside the heart, because it's not the mind. Because the mind, the emotions, the body is all where the ego lives. And it's really like the heart is truly our gateway to God's love. And when we really lean into that inside our consciousness, it makes peace with everything that is coming your way, because you acknowledge, this too is me. Thank you so much. This too is me. Thank you so much. I love you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you for, even though it was a difficult reflection in this moment, or it's unhealed parts, or something that is coming to the surface from a very past old thing that happened when you were 8, right? We don't, it's always surfacing the unresolved material. And so it's an opportunity in our life to keep embracing in the heart of love, that we are love's essence and cannot get away from it. It's the fabric of our existence.
I love that, Dawn. And I think that we're working with that fabric every single day. And I think as we make ourselves and try to improve ourselves, we become more loving of ourselves. We like this life. We like sending love out. We like lighting people up. We like finding out what their primary love language is. When you're sending out one genre, as far as the love languages go, when you're sending out one genre of love that particular day, all day, you're going to light up 3 to 10 people in that particular day, depending on how many people you're in contact with. But as you light them up, you're doing this without any regard of whether it's going to come back or not. And you don't expect anything in return. That's the true love, true essence of love, that there is no expectation. You're sending it out because that's who you are. That's the fabric of your character. And when that fabric of your character becomes more stronger. Yeah, I've got one of those too. Just that's for the words. That's the symbol for the words. A little heart, but it has a little conversation fly out. So
Nice.
that's the words exactly.
Words of
Yeah,
affirmation, yes.
words of affirmation exactly. So when we send that out and we send it out and really help people have a better day, it's making our day better.
Absolutely.
Who wants to make someone else miserable? Send out anger. It'll happen every time. And when you send it out, they're going to tell all their friends that I had a terrible day, and they're going to make them miserable too. Why would we ever do that? When we light people up, it's like starting a fire. It's like that candle vigil that we're passing the flame to many people and hoping that they'll light up as well. That's the whole idea of love. And then we trust the laws of the universe, that we send it out without any expectation of it ever coming back. But the laws of the universe say something different. The law of the harvest, for example, or karma, or the law of attraction says that whatever you send out, someday will come back to you. You just trust those laws that were in effect before you or I or anyone was ever born. They're in effect always, and it'll come back. I've got a great example of that. The other day I have an electric bike, and I was riding my electric bike to the Chick-fil-A just for breakfast sandwiches, and it's just about 2.5 miles away. And I get there, and I'm getting in line, and there's just one person in line in front of me. There's another person that's waiting for their food. While I'm there in line, I'm checking my pants, and I realized I didn't bring my wallet. I didn't bring any money with me. And I said, I start walking outside, get my helmet on, start getting back on my bike. That guy that was standing in line suddenly comes out of Chick-fil-A and says, I'll buy you breakfast, because I was talking to myself out loud. Oh, crap, I forgot my money. And then he said, well, I'll buy you breakfast. It was only $4, and just this random guy. I never met him before, and I did have a business card with him. I don't know how I had a business card with me, and not my wallet, but I had a business card. I said, here, I will give you one of these dice that I created, and I'd love to have just send it to you, and wherever you're at. And so I gave him my card, and he contacted me about a week later. He actually was 300 miles away from me, just random visitor to town, but he'd bought my breakfast for me. And it was just something. If you create that synergy in your own life, you're going to feel very much loved. You're going to feel that you love yourself. You love the life that you're doing of sending love out without any expectation. But if you're building a bank account, you're sending it out, and you're building this bank account that someday that's going to come back. You're going to get some interest payment on whatever you're sending out. Just trust that it happened, but build a life like that. Be 1% better lover today than you were yesterday.
That's beautiful.
That is wonderful. One of the things that I've been thinking about while you've shared is, so I'm studying with a man who studies human emotions. And right now in class, we're trying to define emotion, which is a really wild and fun sort of mental game, because, many people throughout history have tried to do this. But we've tried to, there's students, like 300 students in this huge hall, that are discussing how to understand what emotion is. And one of the things that has come up multiple times, Paul, and which is really lovely that it's relating to what you're saying, is that one of the things that keeps coming up is how we impact people's emotions just by our vibe. That's what Gen Z says, like the vibe, right? Just by our energy, just by how we're behaving in the world, and how we can take on, through empathy or empathetic responses, how we take on people's actual feelings. So when someone's kind of glum, you can be like, oh, and like your body attunes to them and your brain attunes to them. And when you're like, high vibe and you're feeling good and you got a kick in your step, and people are like, oh yeah, and they're vibing off of that with you. So I think it's just the science of emotion, and just understanding that there is energy that we're constantly moving and picking up, and it is about what are we projecting out, or what are we, like what are we giving to the world.
I love that, Trish. And I love what Dawn said about the mirror, all the mirrors in our life, that whatever we're sending out, we're going to get a reflection of that. And as we send anger out, who wants that? It's a boomerang. It's coming right back. But that boomerang, as it gets height, now it has gravity with it. And it's coming back with a greater velocity than you ever sent it back. It may be 10 times worse than whatever you send it out. The same happens with love, though. You send that out, and it'll come back to you when you least expect it, but when you need it, absolutely when you need it. And I really think that synergy and that energy that we're sending out, it's just that reflection in the mirror, just like Don said. We really need to make sure of what we're sending out is something good. And this really is kind of part of my story. I grew up with that abuse and more of an angry type of a household. And the other day I was out walking and found a stick. This stick is a walking stick. It's about 3.5 feet tall. One side of it was just really, really smooth. And then the other side, you can see right here, has little points on it, little tips on it. I call this the knot. I mean, these are knots, and this is the naughty side of the stick. And this is the nice side of the stick. Santa Claus has a stick just like that. You probably wondered, Dawn and Trish, where your presents come from at Christmas time. It's from the naughty or the nice side of the stick. And I realized that this whole angry culture that I grew up in was on the naughty side of the stick. And when you're categorized as the naughty, you don't want to be there anymore. There's 3 things you can do. You can stay the same by blaming other people. Well, and I blamed my father. Well, it's his fault. Go talk to him. That's why I'm angry. It's because of him. And then you don't move anywhere on the stick. You can be at worse, become more naughty, or you can decide to be nice. And they decided to be nice. Part of that angry culture is criticism, and that everybody's dumber than you are, and or less smart than you are, and you kind of elevate yourself to be smarter than everybody else. Therefore, it gives you the opportunity to put other people down. I found that I was doing that. I would say, what's wrong with that person? Why are they doing it that way? Realize that was my focus, and that being that focus, I would be annoyed, and always annoyed at other people. I'm never annoyed at myself. Well, maybe there was one time I was so annoyed at myself that I didn't even talk to myself for 3 days. How can you imagine that?
Sulking.
Anyway, I found myself stacking these annoyances, just stacking it up until there would be something simple, maybe a simple annoyance, the straw that broke the camel's back. I'd have this flash of anger. Then I'd go back down and start stacking these annoyances again. I realized that what I was doing was just looking at the faults or the weaknesses or the failings of another person. I was looking at maybe 10 to 20% of most people. Just everybody has fault. Why was I looking at that? I was missing the whole 80 to 90% of the good of that person. So as I started rolling the dice and following the love languages, now the paradigm shift happened. Now I'm looking for what's right about that person. What can I love about that person? And for me, it was an about face. It was just totally a different mindset that now I'm watching for what's right about that person. I'm so busy doing that, I have no time to be annoyed. And it was the replacement behavior that I needed. Absolutely. Thank you, Trish. It was a replacement behavior that I needed to get over that anger that I had from growing up. A whole different culture. Now I'm back on the nice side of the stick. And I'm so busy trying to be a little bit nicer person every single day. Just yesterday, I thought, I'm going to start calling this the nice dice. Just to have that alliteration and just that little rhyming there to make it's kind of a nice dice. It helps you be a lot nicer person.
I love what you're saying. We have We have a saying in USM that is basically the first two principles are seeing the loving essence and hearing with the ear of your heart. And so if you practice those two principles with every circumstance, every situation, every person, you're going to see past the ego, see past the personality, see past the things that the ego wants to attach to as wrong, bad, black and white, right? And all that narrative, and you can get out beyond the dualistic thinking and into the love, into the field of love. And so it's a really beautiful approach, same as the dice. It's an approach to see through the eyes of love, because really the truth is that's at the end of the day, all there is love. It's an illusion to believe all the other things. It's the false self. It's the false narrative that keeps us trapped in the mind of illusion. And when we let go of that and choose to move into our heart and move into the first law of spirit, which is acceptance. And that's why, Trish, your principle of like how you see love is so right on the money and right spot on, is because you're practicing moving immediately into acceptance of what is consciousness, God, all that is.
Which is different than tolerance, right?
Right. You're not a doormat. No.
It's not just being like, oh, I'm tolerating this behavior or this world. I'm actually accepting that this is reality, and I can move in it in a loving way. And I love what you're both are saying. Really is about. It's not about bypassing reality with a good time, right? It's actually just about seeing what is in front of you, or whether it's in the mirror or whether it's another human being, as seeing them as like, what is good about this person? I have lots of statistics in my brain. Again, you're going to probably get all these like things that I've got going on in school. Sorry. But there has been a rise in depression and a rise in mental health disorders recently. And I think a lot has to do with the pandemic, and a lot has to do with just how the world is going, and how there's just a lot of things that we see every day that are heartbreaking and heartaching. And so one of the things that I'm thinking about in like, I hang out with Gen Z all day. Like those young 19-year-old kids just like delight me. I'm so excited about them. They're so cool. And I also see how real they are about their emotions and how hard they are on themselves. And sometimes I just have to remind them, like, one of there was this kid that he was really just struggling with his homework, and he was just like this test is really important and it's a midterm, and he was just really stressed out. And you could tell that this person had spent so much of his time researching and doing the studying and doing all of the things. And he goes to a mentor that I'm listening to the conversation, and he's talking about, he's like, he doesn't know what to do, and he's afraid to get a B, and his parents are going to get on his case. And I just was like, dude, like, friend, hey, like, you look like you've done the studying, and there's not much more you can like beat into your brain. Go eat dinner, go have fun with your friends a little bit, and go get a good night's rest. And that's going to be the thing, like a little bit of self-love and a little bit of self-care, something that's going to boost you, is really what's going to matter. Like a week from now, and 2 years from now, and in 5 years from now, that midterm isn't really going to exactly matter. But how you cared for yourself and the community and the love that you showed yourself and your friends is what's going to matter. And he looked at me and he was like, whoa, I needed to hear that. And so he's like, I saw him next week in class. He did great on the test. He also went and had pizza with his friends and had a good night's sleep. And I was like, there's things that are important about the world that we get lost. Like we get lost listening to the other things. Like what's really important is the body, and is the mind, and is the connection here in conversations like this, Paul and Dawn. It's like how we connect to ourselves in the world is truly what's important.
I love that, Trish. And I think that that's really important to understand that from that angry culture, there were no boundaries. Yeah. That I could look over the fence and say, why are you doing that? Why are you doing that way? And offer advice unsolicited advice and offer that advice. And I realized that that culture of no boundaries was really damaging to my personal self. It was just my self-esteem, everything, because I would put people down to raise myself up. It was the wrong way to try to get self-esteem. And then I realized that I don't have any control over that person. I don't have any control of what they're saying, what they're doing, the choices that they make. When I realized that, Trish and Don, I realized that, oh, you mean I don't have to manage them? It was such a relief. I have zero control. What I do have control over is myself and who I will be in any circumstance or any situation. Much like the student that you talked about, Trish, that he wanted to do well on the test, but there were parental expectations for him to do well as well. He had done his best in the study and then did fine. We can't really put a lot of weight on what the expectations of other people. We just have to do it for ourselves. And when we do it for ourselves, it brings that great peace that Don was talking about. We have that peace and that love for ourselves. We did the best that we could. And this is who we are. And as we go through life like that, understanding that we're doing our very best, I think it's really a great opportunity for us to love ourselves and love our life and love that peace that comes from knowing that we're doing our very best.
That's the important part, is we're doing our very best. What I also said to this kid was like, at some point you're going to stop living for your parents. Mm-hmm. You're going to start living for yourself. And that's really what's going to matter, is how you step in the world. And it really is truly about, even if, like, I mean, maybe I can speak for all of us here. You can correct me if I'm wrong, but I think that all of us have had struggles, and all of us have had periods of our life where it hasn't been good. And there's moments where you get to accept that this is what reality looks like now, and also to be kind to yourself and to be generous to yourself and loving to yourself. What do you say, Don? Like, to apply love in this place is like to apply love even when it's hard to apply love. And that's really what self-love is to me, is that it's like taking, like, oh man, I don't feel like getting out of bed today, and being like, you know what? I still have value, and I still have purpose, and people still love me, and I still love people, and I still love my body, and I'm worthy of love just for existing. Mm-hmm. And to keep reminding ourselves until we get there.
I love that, Trish. I've got this picture behind me, I guess on this side over here. Got this picture behind me, and I love sunsets and sunrises. But it was probably about 20 years ago. I was a route driver, and I'd get up before dawn, and I'd come home after sunset. And it took me about 6 months of doing this to realize that, oh, the very best sunrises and the very best sunsets all have clouds. We have clouds in our own life. We have things that we all go through, and we don't know it when we're in it, but yeah, we kind of do know that we're in the cloud, we're in the funk, and we've got to get out. But once we're out, then we see the silver lining of the cloud. Then we see the beautiful sunrise or the beautiful sunset of maybe a chapter of our own life. That's what this is all about. Everybody has problems. Everybody has trials in their life. When we go through those, we're grateful for those that are beside us, like you were, Trish, for that student. Grateful for those that have beside us, encouraging us along the way as we're going through that cloud, to be able to get to the other side of that and see it, on the horizon, and see it far away from us, and then realize that was a great learning experience. Now look how beautiful it is, and as it's the sunset on that chapter, or the sunrise.
Absolutely. Mm-hmm. I love that you said that every good sunrise and every good sunset has clouds. I love that. I'm a little curious about when you use the principles of love language. I'm curious about can you go into that a little bit more about what you mean?
So the principles of the love languages are solid, and Don talked a little bit about God and about Jesus. I'm a Christian myself, and Dr. Gary Chapman, who wrote the book, and it was first published in 1992, before you guys were born, and so
I was born in 75.
oh, you guys look really young. Anyway, so in 1992, it's first published, and Dr. Gary Chapman is a Baptist preacher, and so he indicated that the love language is actually reconciled to the life of Jesus Christ. So Christ spent time with people. He served people. We have his words. We love the words. He touched people's eyes so they could see, their ears so they could hear, and then he had the gifts of the Spirit. All 5 love languages were really incorporated into the life of Jesus Christ. When I see that, he had a lot more ability than just those 5 love languages. But what I see that as, Trish and Don, is he had that foundation of love, that these were the basics. This is literacy. If you don't know all 5 love languages and have the ability to practice it, you're almost love illiterate. And then, so I highly recommend that you become literate in love so that you can have that understanding, close that communication gap with people that are sending love to you. Maybe they're sending it in a way that is not your primary love language. There's a gap there. If you can't recognize it, this actually, what the rolling of the die has done for me over a 30-day period, I learned all 5 love languages given away, and it improved my peripheral vision so I could see, oh, they're loving on me. It's not my primary love language, but I can respond to that because I know they're loving on me. They're trying to send love my way. Mm-hmm. So I think this is really a gap that closes a communication gap that we really need to do, and it really helps us build that foundation. After we've built that foundation, now I find myself still stacking, but now it's stacking kindness on top of kindness, on top of kindness, on top of kindness, similar to me stacking those annoyances and having that flash of anger. But kindness on top of kindness on top of kindness gets you to the higher laws of love, like charity or compassion or mercy or forgiveness or intimacy or sympathy or empathy. Can you imagine someone insulting and asking for forgiveness? How likely are you to want to even grant that forgiveness or even accept their apology? I mean, it's just tough if they're continue to insult. It's easier if they have kindness on top of kindness on top of kindness to get to that point that now they can ask for that, for your mercy, for that forgiveness, for that you're accepting their apology that way. And so this will stair step you to those higher laws of love. And so that's kind of how these love language principles are foundational principles in any shape or form. True principles are always foundational, and then you get to the higher laws. Hope that answered your question, Trish.
Totally. All right, I'm bringing back another study. So there's this. There was a study called Tit for Tat. And I think it's really fascinating to see how we engage with other people. So Tit for Tat was this study about groups of people who would play the same game. So you would start off with behaving and in congruence with the other person. So basically, if Paul, you and I were competing, I would just mirror your behavior. And so we would start off in while doing the same thing. So you'd be doing positive things and I would mirror you and do positive things. And most people would mirror people doing positive things until one person would have a selfish moment and be like, no, I want more. So it was a game where you got I think it was 50 cents. And so you'd play 50 cents. And so you'd keep giving 50 cents. And so the people who won out of a boatload of people doing this game is the people who continuously gave to each other instead of wanting to hoard finances or wanting to think, it was the what's the word I'm looking for? There's a really good word here where you're working in collaboration is the place. And so really like the languages of love to me, it sounds like that. And I also really liked when you called literate in love. Oh, that was so good. I really liked that place where you're like, yeah, touch people and extend yourself out, because that's what you're getting back. That's what you will get back.
Interesting that you say that, Trish. I'm really not an advocate of the exchange that way, because it looks more like a transaction. It looks more like it's business. And if you're having that expectation, I'm giving out physical touch because I want it back. That is not love to me. That's an exchange, and that's business. It's not let's make a deal. This is not a reality show. It's sending it out without any expectation. I think that the focus is for each individual. We're talking about self-love. You love yourself so much that you're going to be focused on what you're sending out, regardless of what other people are sending back your way. This is who you are. This is your character, and this is the love. This is the person that you love, is the person that is sending out love on a consistent basis. Dr. Chapman's book of the 5 love languages actually says that you should love your significant other. When I created this, I was single. I've gone through 23 and a half years of marriage and then was divorced. And I imagine that the anger that I had and the stacking of those annoyances was contributory to the demise of that first marriage. But I became a single father at the time. And I realized that I need some loving principles in my life. I need to be a better person, improve myself. So I'm ready for that next relationship. I'm ready for that next person. Or I raised my level of who I am to also find a person like that, that person that I wanted to be connected to. And so you're raising your level that way to find that other person, much like what you're saying about that tit for tat study, Trish, that you're trying to find that person that also has that same mindset. They're trying to improve themselves, trying to be a better person about sending love out, and then just trying to light people up. I needed that in my life. I needed the kids to be lit up every single day so that they'd be motivated to do whatever they wanted to do in love and whatever they love doing. And they have a better self-esteem. They grow up to be stronger citizens, stronger individuals by loving themselves, loving what they do, loving their choices. And I think that's all self-love, just loving the choices that we make every single day.
Absolutely. And yeah, giving without expectation feels so much better.
Oh, it is. That's the only way.
Yeah, because giving with expectation is obligation and resentment.
Yeah, and that's absolutely true, Trish. And I think that Dr. Chapman, when he said that you should tell someone, your significant other, what your love language is, well, you get to this unintended pity party. Say, well, I told you how to love me. Why aren't you doing it? And who wants that pity party? Who wants to be in that position to hear the whiny voice, number one? Who wants to be in that position to even have that obligation? Now it's a duty. It's not pure love. It's the duty that they feel at that point in time. So no longer, Trish or Don, do you have to, you don't have to go up to people and say, excuse me, could you pause this relationship for a moment? Well, I have to take this survey so I know how to love you. You don't have to do that. It's so awkward. Why would you ever do that anyway? And so you're just watching for them to light up. Now you've discovered their primary or a secondary love language. For that person, you just make a mental note and then wash, rinse, repeat. Do that over and over for that person. Everybody's going to be a little bit different, but you'll be lighting people up all day long.
A lot of people don't have the skills of attunement, though. It is something that one must cultivate in our worlds, because a lot of us didn't grow up with the opportunity to have people teach us how to be like to listen and to watch. Like what you're teaching is attunement, and it's so good because because you're watching for someone to light up, and you're remembering not only just in your brain but in your body like how that works in the world. Oh, it's so good. Paul, are you interested in teaching anything right now?
Sure, Trish. What would you like to learn?
Ah,
I am actually doing private coaching right now. That coaching that I'm doing is something that anybody can come on and be coached if they're willing to do it. But I do have a 30-minute consultation that I offer. It's free. If they'll contact me through my website, that's roleoflove.com, ROLE of love.com. Kind of did a play on words, Trish and Don, that we roll the dice, ROLL, outside of us. The change that happens within is our role. That's how we change. ROLE of love.com. They can find the dice. I do have a journal. Some people like to keep track of what they rolled, opportunity they saw to love in that way, what they did about those opportunities. So there's a journal available for that. I would have loved to have a love journal from my mother or my grandmother or my grandfather. Instead, I got a journal about the weather. The weather 60 years ago. Who cares what the weather was like 60 years ago, unless you're a climatologist? I would have loved to have a journal about what they loved, what opportunities they saw love in that way, and what they did about those opportunities. Find the book. It's called Roll of Love. You can find the book and the journal and the dice all on that website. I've got it on sale right now. It's just $29.99. It's a whole lot less than just one therapy session, and it's going to last a whole lot longer for you. It's going to really change your life. Quickly, I found that paradigm shift for me of instead of watching for what's wrong with people, to watch for what's right with people. That about face that I did in my own watching for what's good about people just absolutely changed my life. It'll change your life too.
Do you want to take our listeners through any practice?
Say it again.
Would you like to take our listeners through a practice at all?
Sure. So this dice that I have, I let me just show this to you. I made my own icons. I realized that what Dr. Chapman had in the book didn't work for me. I'm a bad guesser, and he said that if I guess Don or if I guess Trish what your love language is, and I cater to that, then we're going to be buddies. Being such a bad guesser, it wasn't working for me up until that point in my life, and it still wasn't working. So that didn't work. Dr. Chapman had another thing that said, well, if you take this survey, you can find out what your love language is. Well, what am I supposed to do with that? Advertise? Hello, Don, I'm Gifts. What do you have for me today? I could put a little badge on that has my little Venmo. Hello, I'm Gifts. This is my Venmo QR code. Send it over. I mean, how ridiculous and awkward was that? So it really wasn't working for me. But the principles, just the foundational principles of the love languages, really helped me get over that. I realized that as dysfunctional as our family was growing up, we liked games. So we played games together. It brought us together. Yeah, there was still all the put downs. There was all that smack talk, aggressive competition. All that was involved. But games brought our family together. I thought, well, what if I could make these love languages a game? That's when I contacted Dr. Chapman, asked him, are you licensing those little icons, those little pictures you have for each one of the love languages? And his attorney wrote back after a couple of weeks, said, no, we're not doing that at this time. So I had an attorney that was a copyright attorney, intellectual property attorney in my neighborhood that was a friend. And I told him the other idea. He said this, said, theory, like the love language theory, is not copyrightable. Application is. So they weren't doing it as a game. So I made my own icons and put it on the dice. And that's how it came to be. There's just two instructions. You roll the dice or the cube every single day. Whatever it lands on, that's the love language you practice giving away all day that day. You'll notice that every icon on the cube, that's service. You've got the words, time, gifts, and then touch. Every icon on the cube has hands on it. It's a hand like it's giving it away. That's the only thing we really have control over. And once I realized that, I need to stay in my lane about giving that love language away. If we stay in our lane, we're going to be much happier because that's what we're doing. We're sending love out no expectation of ever coming back, but watching people get happy, watching people light up. I love lighting people up. 5 love languages, 6 sides on the cube. This side has a hand with a question mark on it. That's surprise me. So on surprise me day, whenever you roll that, you're watching for opportunities to do random acts of kindness. Those random acts of kindness could be anything. You're just watching for any of the love languages, any opportunity to send out the love languages all day that day. I have just a couple blocks from me, there's a assisted living home, and I go down there pretty regularly to visit with the older people. A lot of them never ever get visitors, especially on a day that I roll service or I roll words. I can do it on or roll time. Any one of those days would be an appropriate day for me to go spend time with them, talk to them, or serve them in some capacity. One of the favorite things that they like to do is play puzzle, and I just go play puzzle with them. Just help them with their puzzle. They always have a puzzle out on the table, as most assisted living facilities do. Just play puzzle with them and talk to them. They have great stories. They have great experiences. There's a lot we can learn from the elderly in our society. And I think that it's just a great way to help them feel better about themselves too. When they feel better about themselves, you're going to have to feel that self-love for yourself as well. You've done something appropriately, something good. You've helped lift another person. I believe that there's pain under every roof throughout the world. Every roof. There's some sort of pain in every situation. If there's any way that we personally can go around relieving that pain anywhere around the world, we ought to be doing it. We don't have to go to Guatemala. We don't have to go to China. We don't have to go to a third world country. We don't have to do anything like that. We can walk down the street of our neighborhood and find someone that's feeling a little bit lower, raise them up. When they feel happy because you raise them up, you're also going to feel that happiness, that peace, that self-love. That's really what we're talking about.
I celebrate your heart's desire, calling to really love God through this method of sharing in this way. And it's really, really wonderful. And just celebrate it with you, and bless your path, bless your life, bless your work, bless all parts of it. Bless this dice that it get in the hands that it needs to go to. And I hope people get to have fun with it, because it's like a fun spin on how to share more love, right? And I love that you got creative and it just flowed through you to create this, and it's really exciting to see.
Thank you so much, Don. I really appreciate all those blessings. It really is a fun thing. You know, the survey would put people into a box. So, Don, because you like the words, you're just going to get tacos every day for the rest of your life. Every day, that's all you get to eat the rest of your life. This provides that variety that as you're rolling the die, you're going to get something different, a little bit different every day. Variety is the spice of life. This is going to spice your love life up and your self-love up a lot better every single day.
Cool. Really, really cool.
Oh yeah, that's really sweet. And I love that you're practicing the practice of doing all of these love languages every day is you're just going to become a genius in the languages of love. That's just brilliant.
Linguist.
That's higher than the linguist. I know that's higher than the linguist. So thank you for that, Trish. That's awesome. My next, I like the alliteration though. Love, language, linguist. You got to say it 5 times though to really get. That's hard. It's hard to do that. But you know, one other thing that we haven't talked about is I'm actually trying to figure out how do we integrate this into the world? How do we get it into the hands of people that really should be using it? And I went to the schools system. There's a couple schools in my community that actually have accepted that they'll roll the die first thing in the morning. The teacher, it takes less than 2 seconds to do that. And we're talking about a power-packed day already. Trish, you're going to school already. You know how power-packed those classes are, and there's not much time that the teacher's going to waste in trying to teach you, and you want your money's worth as well. We're trying to teach these children, and I'm working in K through 6 right now. So the 2 seconds to roll the die, maybe for 30 or 45 seconds, the teacher now explains, class, this is what we're watching for. These are the opportunities. This is the type of love we're going to express today. At the end of the day, in this journal I've created, it has what they rolled, opportunities they saw to love in that way, what they did about those opportunities. So I provide the teacher with a PDF of that so they can print as many as they need. Each student writes basically a journal entry of what they loved about that day, how they loved, and who they loved, or what they did about loving in that way that day. The teacher does a check mark on that and sends it home with the student. The student parents are going to stack those in chronological order. Now, at the end of that school year, that first grader has a first grade journal. Not any type of journal, a love journal. What did they love about first grade? I remember Dawn and Trish. I remember my first grade teacher. I remember her name. And I probably remember that because it was a different environment from what I grew up in. This was a loving environment. They were nice. They weren't mean. They were really nice. And so I remember Mrs. Rogers. I don't remember second, third, fourth, or fifth grade teachers, but I remember my sixth grade teacher. There's got to be a reason. So now we're providing a way for that child to keep track. Why did I love first grade? Why did I love second or third grade or fourth or fifth? Why did I love those grades? And then you'll have a journal at the end of the year. The second thing that it does is that now, instead of having to wait until age 35, when I stopped blaming my father for all those anger spouting off and that habit, that generational habit of stacking annoyances until you had that flash of anger, I blamed my father for that for the longest time, 35 years. Now this 6-year-old realizes, oh, I'm responsible for my actions. I have to write about this at the end of the day. The teacher's going to read it. If it's a great story, the teacher gets to read that the next day. Look what Johnny did. Look what Mary did. And then those other kids say, well, that was really cool. I want to do something like that. I want my story read the next day. They've got that journal, and they've got the opportunity to take responsibility for their own actions. When that happens, I believe it's going to tamp down a lot of the bullying, a lot of the violence that we're seeing come out of the school system right now. We really don't need that. We don't want children like that to grow up to continue to be violent. We want children to grow up to be loving. Hopefully this will be that basic, that literacy that we're talking about, that love literacy they're talking about. Build that foundation now, build it early on. They'll take it into middle school, high school, college, and into their life. That's the whole idea. And I'm looking for corporate sponsors that would allow, all they have to do, and it's not much, but all they have to do is just provide the dice and then the journal page to these schools. And find people that you know that are in the school system to be able to implement it into your own community. Make your community a little bit better in that way.
Paul, you're so precious.
Thank you,
Like, I love your heart. It's just, it's so warm, and like, it's just a very, very sweet blanket. I love this about you.
Oh,
Well,
very
maybe
nice. Thank you.
someone here on this podcast, the call to give you sponsorship so that we can have that in schools, because I think that is a great thing for our students to have, and to really reward kindness again, because I think that there's been we'll call it a rash of experience in the world where kindness and generosity wasn't rewarded, but the other things were.
Absolutely. There is that element of rewards too, Trish and Don, that I really didn't talk about. There's a corporate sponsor here in town that it's a Yogurtland franchise. If they'll record in the journal for 15 days of that particular month, he'll give them 5 ounces of yogurt for free. If they'll do it for 25 days, in fact, the whole month, every school day of the month, he'll give them 10 ounces of yogurt for free. That's the type of sponsorship we're looking for. Somebody that will do that There's a reward for the child at the end, but the real reward is that they're going to learn all the love languages. They're going to be literate in love. They're going to be able to iron out a lot of the communication problems that are in the world today, because we're missing great opportunities. I know I've missed a ton of opportunities. People loving on me. I didn't see it.
I know.
Didn't have a clue.
And it's also just when someone misses your love too, you're like, that was a missed opportunity.
Yeah.
Well, Paul, thank you so much for your time and your attention and your energy today. It's incredibly precious as well. And your mission in the world and what you have to share, I think, is really going to ripple out to communities. So please, if you like what you heard and you resonated with Paul's work, you can go to rolloflove.com or Instagram is Paul Zolman, Paul_Zolman, or you can go to roll, ROLE, of Love Dice and find him in all of these different places, whether it's on his website or Instagram or Facebook. You can find him there. Thank you so much for your time. And I want to give a sweet shout out to our team, Roy and Russell, for always showing up and making the whole show possible. Thank you for the graphics and the marketing and literally doing all the things. Yeah, we love you so much. Thank you to Love Coach Academy and Scott Katamas for always being our amazing muses and really sponsoring us out. And thank you to you for showing up, for listening, and for loving yourself and each other more. We'll see you same time, same place next week.